The John Birch Society has been a leader in this country as far as protecting the sovereignty and the freedom of the United States for more than 5 decades. It is for that dedication that they have brought forward in protecting the American flag that we thank them for. And at this time I would like to bring forward Ken Hoover, who will represent and speak for the John Birch Society.
Oh, glory! Or this amalgam, and it's not all that hypothetical either, folks. Well, I'm really excited about the crowd this morning. You got up early, you didn't sleep in, you thought enough of your country and your friends and neighbors and your heritage, your posterity, to go out and make a stand. Let's give yourself a round of applause. In order to further equip you to be effective in this freedom fight, if you allow me to share just a little bit of history, and then we'll talk about what the Society is doing to stop the North American Union, because that's what this rally is all about.
Yes!
All right, let's talk about giving some hard facts. Regardless of what the neoconservative talk hosts say, there really is, Susie Cream Cheese, an elitist cabal of insiders, drawn from the upper echelons of academia, media, international finance, cabinet and sub-cabinet levels of our own government, think tanks, who work in collaboration with socialists and globalists around the world towards the common goal of a new world order. To that end, they have harnessed the power, prestige, and resources of our own government and have created and maintained such instrumentalities as the United Nations to rule the world through at some point. The most prominent and influential organization of the insiders in this nation is the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. It's not just a study group. This organization has virtually owned the State Department since the late 1930s and maintains a solid lockhold on the so-called upper tier of the presidential candidates of both parties. Likewise, it has maintained a firm grip on the cabinets and other key appointed positions in all administrations since the conclusion of World War II. This self-same global establishment, recognizing early on the near impossibility of achieving world government through the United Nations in one direct move, have sought to instead to build regional governments under the initial guise of free trade agreements. These regional governments, the European Union, that is the EU being the prototype, would absorb the sovereignty of its member nations. As this process was repeated in various regions around the world, the number of sovereign and free nations would be reduced to the point where they would be more manageable and thus easier to place under the United Nations at a later time. Over time, this EU acquired its own parliament, money, national anthem, and flag. At present, it is attempting to foist a so-called constitution on its member nations. In the early 1990s, meanwhile, the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, was passed and was heralded by arch insider Henry Kissinger as, quote, the most creative step towards a new world order taken by any group of countries since the end of the Cold War, unquote. Since its approval in 1993, NAFTA's accomplishments have included, listen carefully, 1.8 million American workers applying for trade adjustment assistance because of losing their jobs to NAFTA. Countless U.S. factories have been closed and rebuilt in Mexico. The U.S. manufacturing base has shrunk dramatically, and our nation is rapidly becoming a mere service provider. The southern border of the United States remains wide open, and promises by the federal government to close it have been empty. And finally, rulings from international NAFTA tribunals have superseded state and federal court decisions, and long-standing state laws are threatened as well. Our basic sovereignty has been compromised by NAFTA. Now, earlier in this decade, spearheaded by a phalanx of Rockefeller-dominated organizations, the drive for a hemispheric-wide free trade area of the Americas, or FTAA, got underway. This was to be NAFTA on steroids. But however, due to the principled opposition of the John Birch Society and its members, chapters, and friends, it was soon dead in the water, at least domestically. However, the Council on Foreign Relations put the FTAA on the back burner and launched a task force on NAFTA and the North American integration. As a direct result, the leaders of the North American Summit Nations, that's G.W. Bush, at that time Martin of Canada, Vicente Fox of Mexico, introduced the Security and Prosperity Partnership, SPP, in front of God and man at Baylor in March of 2005. These will lead us to a series of subsequent summits. Articles in academic journals, media appearances have made no bones about their desire to, or their goal to establish a North American economic and security community with a common external tariff and security perimeter being the North Pole and the Mexican border with Guatemala. In other words, the North American Union founded on NAFTA, and the process would begin in earnest in the year 2010, a mere 2 years away now. Former President Vicente Fox, prior to the 2005 summit, and on many occasions since, has called for NAFTA to evolve into, quote, an ensemble of connections and institutions similar to those created by the European Union, unquote. Recently, on the Larry King Live program, he's even owned up to the existence of plans to replace the dollar with a regional currency, the Amero. And there's more. Over the last few years, the existence of plans for NAFTA highway corridors to be designed and built to span from Mexico to Canada to serve as a critical infrastructure for the integration of North America have been revealed. Public outcry has slowed the implementation of the Texas leg of this scheme, the TTC, Trans-Texas Corridor. Now, that's some basic history. Let's get on the plus side of the ledger. The North American Union, as majestic a plan it is from their point of view, is their weakest link. Because Americans like you love your independence, love your Constitution, and won't give it up if they hear about this. And for what we're seeing through the exposure through the society, through our publications, through talk radio hosts or TV hosts like Glenn Beck, Lou Dobbs, many other organizations, the American people, when they find out about this, they're fighting mad. The North American Union, however, is absolutely necessary for the plans of the insiders for global government. They can't put together a UN-ruled government without a North American Union fueled by the power, resources, and influence of our own United States government. It's that simple. If they're going to replicate the EU and make it even stronger, they've got to have an NAU and all these other areas. But given how much wealth is in the United States, how much power and influence our government possesses, they can't do it without us. And yet it's the most unpopular part of their program. So they're in a dilemma. So in other words, if we expose the North American Union, you topple the house of cards of the insiders, of the power elite. Since 2004, we have scored the following accomplishments on this all-important front. As I mentioned a while ago, we sandbagged the free trade area of the Americas. Under the banner of the JBS Freedom Campaign, we have put out special issues on the North American Union, NAFTA, of our bi-weekly publication, The New American, to over 100,000 individuals, primarily to opinion molders. We have set the stage for the introduction of anti-North American Union resolutions in the Congress to block the North American Union and the NAFTA super corridors, as well as to repeal NAFTA itself. That's the underlying process that drives all this. Yes. And we started the national debate on these issues, bringing NAFTA itself back into consideration or into contention. But now we have a program that will make a huge impact. Our objective will be to stop the North American Union, stop illegal immigration by repealing NAFTA as a major step. This is a program that will not only arouse the informed, and we've got the informed here today to some extent, but it will build a base of understanding within key opinion molders. And through them, we can leverage public opinion to cause Congress to listen finally and say no. Yeah. What part of the no don't you understand? Into the O, Congress. We're in the process of sending this updated issue, special issue of our bi-weekly periodical, The New American, it's called Merger in the Making, to 1 million opinion molders. Right now, we've already got out 475,000, and sadly, we don't even have any copies today because the printer delayed. And hopefully, it arrived at headquarters yesterday. But I got good news: you can download a free PDF of this, free, from both our websites, www.jbs.org. thenewamerican.com. Rate it, forward it to your email list, and by George, if you continue and make it viral, that's several 100,000 more, maybe millions more to get this information.